Hello, Lokens. Camila here. Fuck's sake, bro. In this video, we're gonna be discussing Wriothesley's team comps. We're gonna go through like his main meta teams, and we're gonna discuss like all of the options in certain type of teams and stuff like that. So yeah, let's subscribe to the channel and let's begin. Alright, so first of all, the main and in my opinion the best team for Wriothesley is gonna be just a melt team. The prototype of the team is just gonna be a Wriothesley, obviously, as a main DPS on field auto attacks. And then you're gonna need a Pyro, you're gonna need an Anemo with the Wriothesley, and then you can have a flex of whatever you can have. We're gonna discuss them in a bit. So with the Pyro, usually you can use either Xiangling or Bennett, or maybe in some cases Thoma. I would say Xiangling or Bennett are definitely the best in slots. If you're using them in like a Dendro team too, for like Burgeon and stuff like that, you might use Thoma. Other than that, I'd say just stick with Xiangling and Bennett. Xiangling is just a pretty good Pyro enabler who also deals damage, so we don't have to talk about that. And then with Bennett is also going to be like a good enough Pyro enabler, and is also going to buff you a lot, which is pretty good. Also about Bennett, yes, it's going to still work with Wriothesley pretty well, even though he's going to heal you above 60%, which means your passive is not really going to work with Wriothesley, but his buffs are going to be much more valuable than Wriothesley's passive. It's definitely going to make up for it, even though you're not getting like the charge attacks, damage boost, and stuff like that. The attack boost from Bennett is just going to be much better. So Bennett is definitely still a viable option to use with Wriothesley. Now for the Anemo, you can pretty much use any Anemo with the Wriothesley, but mainly you'd want to use either Sucrose or Kazuha. The main reason is that it's because they give you Elemental Mastery, which is pretty good in a melt team. So Kazuha and Sucrose are going to be like the best in slot options. Other than that, you can use any Anemo like Lynette, for example, Venti, Heizu even, like whatever. So yeah, any Anemo, slap in the Wriothesley for the resistance shred and you're good. Elemental Mastery is going to be very appreciated too if you're using Kazuha or Sucrose. And then finally for the flex slot, it really depends on like what you have and what you want. So you can go something like a second Cryo, you could go like C6 Diona, for example. She's going to give you a lot of Elemental Mastery. You can even go something like Shinha, for example. Obviously you can go like Rosaria and then use like the Noblesse on her. You can go Mika for the attack speed. You can go Layla for shielder. There are a lot of options. It depends on like which utility do you want. You can even go Bennett if you do use like Xiangling. You can have like Xiangling and Bennett. You can go Zhongli as a shielder. You can go Yunjin as an attacks buffer. There are literally like unlimited options. Just look at what you have available on your teams, what you have built, and then you can probably find something. Those are mainly, I think, like the main options that I listed, but I'm pretty sure there are still other characters that are going to be usable as a flex. Oh yeah, you can also go with like a Dendro, like Nahida, for example, and then with Thoma, you can have like a Burgeon melt team. So yeah, that's pretty good. But yeah, this is the melt team like core for Wriothesley. Most of his top teams are probably going to be melt teams, or at least like some kind of variation of a melt team. So yeah, I definitely recommend looking into this kind of team, and you're definitely going to have a pretty good Wriothesley team. But now moving on to the second team type, which is a freeze team. So the core for a freeze team is obviously going to be Wriothesley as a main DPS on field. You're definitely going to need the Hydro. You're going to need an Anemo with the Wriothesley. And then finally, you can have a flex slot too. So a lot of these are going to be very similar to the melt team, but it's going to be a little bit different. So first of all, for the Hydro, you can have like Yellen or Xingqiu. Both of them are probably going to be the best in slot. At least in my opinion, I think they're like pretty comfortable, especially because you're using your normal attacks, which is pretty good. But you can also pretty much use a lot of other Hydros like Mona, for example, or Kokumi, for example, even though she heals you, but you know, she's still usable. But yeah, the main thing is you're gonna need an off-field Hydra applicator, which, you know, there are a lot of characters that can do that. For the Anemo, it's pretty much the same thing as a melt team, but the thing is you're not really gonna need that much Elemental Mastery anymore, so you have like better equal options. Or not better, just like equal options to Kazuha and Sucrose. Now you can use like Venti, for example, or Lynette, or Heizu, or whatever. You can use them without really any like disadvantages. I don't think Kazuha and Sucrose are going to be much better, except for like the AoE group and stuff like that. But other than that, like as an Anemo with the Wriothesley, they're going to be pretty much equal, so you can have more options, I guess. Other than that, it's pretty much the same thing. It's just having an Nemo. And then finally, for a flex slot, usually I would heavily recommend just having like a second Cryo. Just for the Cryo resonance, you know, it's pretty good on a freeze team. So obviously the best one in my opinion is probably gonna be Shinha, especially on a freeze team. She's definitely gonna be pretty good. But yeah, other than that, you can have any second Cryo, like Rosaria, for example. Even though your crit rate is probably gonna cap out, but still she's gonna be pretty good. You can have even like Kea, for example. whatever, any second Cryo. But even a second Cryo is not really like super important. Like it's pretty good, but it's not necessary. So you can have like Bennett, for example, as a buffer, whatever. That's also gonna work. Any other characters that we talked about before in the melt team, like Eugene, for example, or I don't know, the Shielder, whatever. You can have them also as a flex, but again, I heavily recommend just having a second Cryo. It's gonna be probably better. You can also have him in like a fridge team. You can use like a Dendro as a flex, and then you're just gonna have like a fridge team variation of a freeze team. If you don't know what a fridge team is, it's pretty much just a bloom team, but you're gonna have like more blooms because you can produce like more blooms than just having like a Hydra enabler, which is also a pretty good kind of team. And then finally, you can also play him in like mono Cryo team. Just pretty much replace everyone with just a Cryo character, except for the Anemo. You're gonna need an Anemo for that. But yeah, you can just replace the Hydra and the Flex with Cryo characters. Shinha is definitely much more recommended in this team, so you probably want to have Shinha in like the second slot, and then another Cryo, which is whoever, like Layla, Kea, Rosaria, whatever. And then you want to have an Anemo just for the resistance shred with the Wriothesley. A mono Cryo is also gonna be like a pretty decent team. It's probably not as good as the other teams, but it's definitely usable. So yeah, that's also an option. But yeah, I would say those are like the main teams for Wriothesley at least. It's either a melt team or some sort of like variation, or a freeze team or some sort of variation. Those are like his main meta teams that everyone would want to use. I wouldn't really recommend looking at any other like type of teams for him. So yeah, his meta teams are just pretty much melt or freeze. That's pretty much it. And melt is generally better. But yeah, that was the video, guys. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and see y'all in the next video. Peace.